Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're diving into something pretty interesting, especially if you're like a lot of folks in Chandra Mast's world, and keeping tabs on how we're using visuals to share information. With AI playing a bigger and bigger role in fields like appraisal, this is one you won't want to miss. We're talking about OpenAI and how they've fully integrated, like completely woven in their most advanced image generator right into GPT-4o. And get this, it's not about making those kind of cool, artsy pictures anymore. It's all about making images that are actually, get this, useful.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. What OpenAI is doing is basically saying, hey, image generation isn't just some extra thing. It's got to be like a core part of what these super smart language models can do.
Yeah.
And everything they've built into GPT-4o, it's all about using it in the real world, not just making pretty pictures to look at.
Okay, so let's break down this whole useful thing. I mean, we've all seen those crazy good, sometimes kind of trippy images that AI can spit out, but those are more for wow factor, right? What OpenAI is getting at is that throughout history, visuals have always had a job to do. Like, think about how diagrams explain how things work, or how a logo tells you exactly what a brand is all about in like a second.
Couldn't have said it better myself. While AI can make some seriously impressive art, it often has a hard time making what OpenAI calls workhorse imagery. That's the everyday stuff we use to talk to each other, make presentations that actually convince people and, analyze stuff and figure things out. Things like accurate diagrams, charts that actually tell you something useful, and logos that really capture an idea.
And this is where GPT-4's image generation is like next level. They design it so it can actually understand and put text right into images like super accurately. So think about finally being able to make infographics with AI that people can actually read. And it gets better because it can follow really detailed instructions and use its massive knowledge bank to create images that actually make sense based on what you're talking about. Heck, it can even take an image you give it and like totally transform it or use it as a starting point.
What really gets me excited is how being able to put text right into an image turns the whole thing into a way to actually communicate. Imagine being able to get AI to whip up a detailed floor plan with all the room names perfectly clear and in the right spot. It's like a whole new level of making things clear and easy to understand.
And it's not just about text either. This new model can handle what they call detailed directions, like really complex instructions. It can juggle way more separate elements in a single picture than before. We're talking like 10 to 20 objects compared to the 5 or 8 that older systems could handle.
Yeah, and that jump in the number of things it can handle. Plus the fact that it's way better at connecting those objects with their specific details, their color, position, how they relate to other stuff. It gives you so much more control over what the final image looks like. You can get super specific, and the AI will actually translate all those little details into a visual that makes sense.
Now, they also mentioned something called transparent layers. And honestly, they didn't go into a ton of detail, but just hearing that phrase gets the wheels turning, right? Especially if you need to use AI-generated images in like documents or designs you're already working on. Imagine having digital stickers you can just slap onto other images without covering anything up underneath. That's like a whole new level of flexibility when you're putting visuals together.
You got it. Even without knowing all the nitty-gritty details, just the fact that it has transparent layers tells me it's going to be really adaptable. Like if you're making marketing materials, visual aids for a presentation, or even just putting notes on property photos, it just makes it so much easier to use these images in all sorts of digital settings.
Okay, so another cool thing is this character consistency thing. Since image generation is now like baked into GPT-4o, if you're chatting with it to refine an image, let's say you're making a logo and tweaking it as you go, the model will keep the overall look and feel consistent, even with all the changes. They even use the example of designing a video game character where it keeps looking like the same character, even if you play around with its features.
Being able to keep things consistent across different parts of a conversation is a pretty big deal for the creative process, right?
Yeah.
It's like having a back and forth with the AI where you can slowly refine your vision without losing the core elements you started with. It's like having a partner who's also a visual whiz and remembers everything you've talked about.
Then there's this thing called in-context learning. This is where GPT-4o can actually look at images you upload and learn from them. So like if you upload a specific style of appraisal report graphic that you use all the time, it can then make new graphics that look almost exactly the same, picking up on all the subtle little visual cues. It's almost like it's learning to see and read at the same time, figuring out how words and pictures naturally go together in the real world.
Being able to learn from visual stuff that users give it is huge. It's not just about describing what you want with words anymore. The model is actually looking at the image, taking it all in, and using that to learn. That means you can customize things and copy styles in a way that was really hard before. It's like it's leveling the playing field so that people who aren't designers can still make stuff that looks really professional and consistent.
And all this is built on this idea of better world knowledge, right? Since image generation is now a core part of GPT-4o, the model can connect its understanding of words and pictures way better. OpenAI is saying this basically makes the model feel smarter and more efficient overall.
Exactly. It's like all the pieces are finally fitting together. The model isn't treating words and images as separate things anymore. It's all part of the same thought process. And that's
Yeah.
probably why the images it creates are so much better now. They're more connected to what's being said, they make more sense in context, and the quality is just better overall.
Oh, and one more thing about its core capabilities. They're really emphasizing photorealism and style. Because it's been trained on such a massive and diverse set of images, it can create or transform images in a ton of different aesthetics, from super realistic stuff to all kinds of artistic styles. It's pretty impressive.
And that ability to switch between styles is really important if you're going to use it for real-world stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a realistic visualization for a client. Other times you need something more stylized for presentation. It looks like GPT-4o is ready to handle whatever you throw at it.
Okay, so now let's peek under the hood and see what makes all these improvements possible. It sounds like a big part of it is that they trained the models on both online images and text at the same time.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. It's not just about teaching the model how to describe pictures with words. It's about teaching it how images relate to each other visually, like how to actually see the world the way we do. And that's why I can understand visual concepts and relationships on a whole other level.
And they also talk about aggressive post-training. It sounds kind of intense, right? But they say it's a big reason why the model is so good at making images that look good and are actually useful, consistent, and make sense in context.
Aggressive post-training basically means they put in a lot of work to refine the model's output after the initial training phase. It's like fine-tuning it to make sure the quality, coherence, and relevance are all top-notch. And yeah, it definitely shows in the results.
Now, we got to be realistic, right? No AI is perfect, and OpenAI knows that. They admit that GPT-4o has limitations, and they're working hard to make it even better in the future.
That's actually a good sign.
Hmm.
They're not pretending it's the be-all and end-all. They're being honest about where it's at and constantly working to make it more reliable and robust.
And they're putting a lot of effort into safety, which is super important with any powerful AI, right? One of the things they've done is add something called C2PA metadata to every image GPT-4o makes. Think of it like a digital fingerprint or a birth certificate for the image. It makes it way easier to trace where it came from, which is huge for transparency and making sure people know if they're looking at something made by AI.
Yeah, that's really important these days with all the misinformation floating around. Knowing where an image came from helps build trust and makes it harder for people to spread fake stuff. And they even have an internal search tool to double-check the origin of an image if they need to.
And they're also working hard to stop people from using it to make harmful content. They're blocking requests for things like child sexual abuse material and those creepy deep fakes. They've even made it harder to make images of real people, especially if it involves nudity or graphic violence.
It's good to see them being proactive about this stuff. They're not just ignoring the potential problems, they're actively trying to prevent them. And those extra restrictions around images of real people, that shows they're really committed to using this technology responsibly.
What I find really interesting is how they're approaching safety. They're using a special reasoning LLM that's been trained on all these human-written safety guidelines. It's like a safety expert AI that helps the system understand and apply the rules even when things get a little tricky or unclear.
That's way more advanced than just using keyword filters or something. They're using AI to understand AI, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah.
It allows for a much more nuanced and flexible approach to keeping things safe.
So how do we actually get our hands on this new image generation magic? It sounds like they're already rolling it out.
Yep, they're making it available to pretty much everyone. If you're using Plus, Pro, Team, or even the free version of ChatGPT, you'll have GPT-4o image generation as your default option. And they're planning to add it for enterprise and education users soon.
And for those who are interested in making videos, these new features are also part of Sora. But don't worry, if you still love the old DALE model, you can still use it through a separate GPT interface.
That's good, right? They're not forcing everyone to switch if they don't want to. It gives people choices
Mm-hmm.
and lets them use the tool that works best for them.
And for developers who want to use this in their own apps and services, they're planning to release API access for GPT-4o image generation in the next few weeks. So that's something to look forward to.
That's going to open up a ton of possibilities. Developers are going to come up with all sorts of creative ways to use this stuff, and we're going to see some really innovative new tools and workflows.
And the best part, OpenAI says it's super easy to use. Creating and customizing images is as simple as having a conversation with GPT-4o. You just tell it what you want, and you can even specify all the little details like aspect ratio, exact colors using hex codes, or a transparent background so you can easily use the image in other projects. It's like talking to a designer who can instantly make your ideas come to life.
That's what makes this technology so exciting. It's not just for tech wizards anymore. It's for everyone. You don't need to be a coding genius or a design pro to use it. Just talk to it like you'd talk to a friend, and it'll do the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, they did say that because it can create much more detailed and complex images now, it might take a bit longer to render some of them. You might have to wait up to a minute for those really intricate ones.
But hey, that's a small price to pay for the amazing results you can get, right?
Yeah.
A little patience goes a long way when you're dealing with this level of detail and complexity.
So the big takeaway here is that OpenAI's new image generation in GPT-4o is all about making visuals that are actually useful. It's not just about making pretty pictures anymore. It's about using images to communicate, to explain things, and to make better decisions. And for folks like you and everyone in Chandra's circle who works in fields like appraisal, where clear visuals are so important, well, this could be a game changer. Imagine being able to instantly visualize property details, create charts that show market trends, or generate all sorts of visual aids to help you do your job better.
Absolutely. The fact that it's so focused on accuracy, the level of control you have, and how seamlessly it works with the existing language model, it all adds up to a huge leap forward in generative AI. I think it's going to change the way we create, share, and interact with visual information in all kinds of professional settings.
It really gets you thinking, doesn't it? Like, imagine being able to create any image you need instantly and have it be relevant to what you're doing and full of useful information, not just for work, but for everything. It's pretty mind-blowing, and it's something we'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
Until next time, folks, keep exploring and stay curious.